Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we cover all the home teams, the Saints, Tulane, LSU. We'll talk a little Urban Meyer as well. We'll talk a little bit about Zach Street, the new play-by-play voice for the New Orleans Saints on the radio side. And to break it down for us, one of the best out there, Mike Detillier of WLAE Radio and so much more. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend? Good to see you once again.
Good to see you, Eric. I'm going to tell you something Coach O would tell you if he saw you.
What's that?
Man, you're not playing nose guard no more, Asher. We're going to move you to inside linebacker.
Yeah.
You're looking good, brother. Get that weight down.
Thank you, my man.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. A lot of walking, a lot of dieting, but it's been worth it thus far.
That's super.
Before we get started, I always like to let folks know about how they can find all your great stuff. How can they do that?
Clip that radio dial because, I was just telling this to Matt. This was probably my 50th show this week, radio. I mean, it's been a deluge. And, different things as the college football season's fixing to start. And then, the nuclear bomb went off yesterday with Urban Meyer.
Yes.
And which is the biggest, to me, college sports story that's happened this year with an elite coach. So, you can hear me from WWL, radio, TV, you name it. I'm doing it. So I'm thrilled to death and to be out there.
Mike, let's start off with Urban Meyer. What are your thoughts on the situation there, and if you think he's going to survive?
There's no way. He cannot survive in this world today. Listen, it's always been out there. The world's not fair.
Yes.
It's not fair. And people who have money and influence, and you have a university or an organization behind you, certain things can get covered up. But eventually, it's going to catch you in today's world. I think 6 to 8 months ago, the world changed for all of us. Harvey Weinstein, Hollywood, the Me Too movement came into place. And we saw the dominoes falling all over the place. Even before that, you look at what happened at Fox with some of their executives in the sports and also the news department and what happened there. We've seen it today with allegations toward Matt Lauer, Tom Brokaw. You can go on and on. And in the sports world, we saw this with Art Briles, what's happened at Michigan State. But,
Penn State?
At Penn State even before with Joe Paterno. And even at USC with Sarkisian, who had a personal issue on that particular deal. And he goes to Courtney Wins, which is unbelievable, but it is what it is today. There's no way Urban Meyer can survive because the flame is so high at Ohio State today and the outrage, and understandably it should be for what I think has been his knowledge of it, his cover-up of it, and his lying. Because all he had to do was to report this to the person that he's got to report it to, and it's over with. He's turned it over to the authorities. This is a young lady who has 9 different filed affidavits at a police department. He didn't know about any of that? Come on. You're kidding yourself. But again, he's an elitist. he was smug about it at the Big Ten Media Day, almost smug about, just dismissive of it. No, you're not living like you lived 20 years ago.
Right.
And I think that Weinstein case has had a huge ripple effect across all of society today, completely. And it's caught Urban Meyer, but he did it to himself. You think about it, if you took Nick Saban out of the equation and you asked presidents and ADs across America, who would you want as your coach today?
Right. Yeah.
And Urban Meyer would be the overwhelming guy.
No doubt.
To be that individual. And how he handles this will be interesting. But Gene Smith and the president of Ohio State have no recourse but to release him.
Well, then let me ask you what happens next, because and I talked about it today on the radio show. There's going to be someone out there that has the allure of Urban Meyer, and they're going to justify bringing him in as their head coach. How do you think it happens this year? Will he have to sit out a year? When I'm saying this year, meaning next season. Do you have to sit out, or do you think someone will come a-calling as soon as the season is over?
He's radioactive this year. It'll be sometime next year. And how he handles this, he's got to be able to, he can't handle it any worse than Art Briles. Just think about that, Eric, where Baylor's program was before Art Briles,
right,
and then after what's happened since. No, Art Briles was a tremendous coach there, but he turned a blind eye to everything. He played as though that he didn't know anything, and he lied about it. And everybody knew he lied about it. And I said at the time, he would never get a head coaching job. The offenses that happened there, he would never be a head coach at a college level and even a professional level without a lot of recourse. I feel a little bit different about Urban because he's an elite coach, and I think somebody is going to say, you know what, look what he did at Utah, look what he did at Florida, look what he did at Ohio State, and I'm going to give him that third chance. Look how close he came to almost getting caught in issues at Florida. 32 former players of the Gators that he recruited went to jail one time or another there. And he played as though nothing wrong with that in that time frame. But you know what? He won a national championship with Tebow. He brought them to another level. And he was one of the few guys that beat Nick Saban, in the SEC. So again, I do think he gets another opportunity somewhere, somehow. It won't be this year because, again, he's radioactive now. But I do think he gets an opportunity to be a head coach somewhere again. Now, I'm not saying that a guy like Bill Belichick, who respects Urban a lot, wouldn't say, hey, you want to come be an analyst, for us here with the Patriots and do that sort of thing. But as far as a head coach, he's going to have some time. And how he handles the aftermath of this, I think, is going to be super important. But you know what? Courtney Smith is the real victim here. And a lot of people want to talk about what's going to happen to Urban and everything else. But this young lady got beat up, and not once or twice. It was numerous times. And his wife knew about it. He has always preached about, I hold my players to a high standard, and if you get caught doing something, you're out of here. Okay? He didn't hold his assistant coaches to the same standard. And he basically, again, the crime is one thing, because that's Zach Smith that did it. The cover up and the lying, he did about it.
And the thing that really kind of amazes me here is Zach Smith. I mean, he's not the greatest coach in the history of college football that you need to hold on to that guy, right? I mean, he was a pretty good recruiter from what we understand. Obviously, it was someone that was a family friend, Earl Bruce's grandson or something?
Earl Bruce's grandson. And Urban always considered Earl Bruce like a second dad
his
to
mentor,
him, his mentor. That sort of thing.
So it was a family connection, so to speak, and of course maybe lost sight of it. I'm not sure why he wouldn't have nipped this in the bud. Why did he bring him with Florida, from Florida to Ohio State after he knew the allegations in 2009, the arrest, and then of course Courtney Smith backing off, as a lot of battered women do. Okay, and then the situation in 2015 when it raised its head again, and again ignoring it there. It's 3 years later now.
So, here's my deal about it. We all have been around people that we grew up with, he either went to high school with, college, friends with, guys we hung out with, even women we hung out with, so to speak, that we know that they have a major flaw somewhere. We still friends with them.
Right.
And how many times? Sometimes we do cover up for them.
Absolutely. We overlook things.
We overlook the fact they have a major flaw. That's what Urban Meyer did. He overlooked what happened with Zach Smith. Like it or not, it happens in everyday life, and it happened to Urban Meyer. The other part about it is, there's two sides of Urban Meyer. The guy that, one-on-one, he's personable, and at times he's got a good sense of humor. But on the other times, because I've had people who cover him tell you he's smug, he thinks he's a cut above, I don't have to answer your questions, I'm just going to answer what I want to answer. He's an elitist coach. I think when you get to that level, you feel as though you're privileged.
Sure.
And I don't have to answer to you or you or you or anyone else. I'm the guy. Everybody said, well, he should read his contract. Come on, he's a coach. He ain't reading no 80-page contract. His lawyers dealt that.
Sure.
He's always worried about winning and recruiting. That's his deal. And you shuffled around as a college head coach. No excuses for him, but there's no way he survives at Ohio State. And that now, who that puts behind the 8 ball? Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
For all this stuff, he's coming in and he's going to turn this Michigan program around, and people want to excuse him. Oh, he had a weird loss to Michigan State. He lost, in overtime to Ohio State. Well, okay, hasn't every coach had losses like that? Ask Saints fans. How did they lose in Minnesota?
Right.
You don't think that was a weird way to lose things?
Right.
But he's always had that excuse. Now, as much as I think he probably is doing a little celebration that Urban Meyer isn't there, you know what it does? It turns the burners up on him. That you better win, because now you have no excuse to say, I lost to one of the best coaches in college football and one of the best programs. Before it was, I'm looking for a quarterback. So now you got Shea Patterson, and you don't have to deal with Urban Meyer.
Right.
So you better win.
Great point. Great point. Another controversial issue down here in South Louisiana. A viewer asked me to ask you this question directly. What are your thoughts on the discontinuation of the LSU-Tulane baseball series?
I don't get that.
I don't either.
I have no idea. I think some of that has to do with Erica's connections. When you're an athletic director and you see how athletic directors jump around today, they have no connection to the school. They now are money people. Like in the Catholic Church, they pass the collection. That's their gig today. They have no connection to what that rivalry means to people in Louisiana.
Sure.
Why isn't LSU and Tulane on a scheduled situation to play football? Look what LSU's playing this year. Southeastern and Louisiana Tech.
Right.
So, again, that has to go on the athletic director, on how you handling it from both schools.
Agreed, both schools.
You got to be able to work that out. But where are the athletic directors from LSU and Tulane?
Right.
They got no connection.
No connection to Louisiana. Agreed.
At all. And that's where it stops.
Yes.
I don't know the history behind that. Somebody's got to explain to me that if you're the AAD. Yeah. So I don't get it. I think it's a terrible situation for them not to play because of the rivalry. But I felt the same way about football, that you should at least, it doesn't have to be every year, but at least have them on the schedule.
Right.
Listen, LSU's already scheduled Nicholls State down the road. But, I don't get it.
I don't either. You're talking about two schools playing since the late 1800s, and you're talking about something that's bigger than the administrations that are there now. It is tradition. College sports is about tradition. And I just think it's ludicrous that we've gotten to this point where now even in baseball, where they've been competitive, that there won't be a series ongoing.
Eric, I have no idea. But, again, my thought process on this has always been that when you hire people from outside, they do not know the long-term history of that rivalry. And it's got to work for both schools now. You both got to play tag team together here with that, and somebody's got to become the medium. Somebody's got to come in and say, guys, this doesn't make any sense. This has been going on for way too long. It's been competitive between both teams. continue this rivalry because it draws the interest in college baseball.
Yes.
It draws the interest on both sides. And what Skip Bertman did not only in Louisiana, he became Bear Bryant of college baseball.
Yes.
When he left Miami of Florida to come to LSU, that was no coverage of LSU baseball. And Mississippi State was the only school that got a lot of ink baseball-wise because they were winning. They were advancing into the College World Series. When Skip came here, he changed the world. Look how competitive now. Arkansas, you see South Carolina, Florida, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Even with a new coach, an interim coach come in, and what happened there? The world's changing college baseball. But, you know, I think if you ask both athletic directors, I don't think they really know that at this stage.
Well, and then let's add something to the pot here with Skip. Skip wanted to play state schools.
Exactly.
He went out of his way to play state schools.
Because he understood and had people in his ear about it was important.
Right.
I'm not real sure who's in the ear of any of the two athletic directors today.
Right. Now I would agree. It was announced that Zach Street is going to be the new radio play-by-play voice for the New Orleans Saints. Your thoughts?
Well, boy, it's unique. To say the least.
Yes.
To say the least. Zach's got some big shoes to fill. We've done some draft shows with him. I was very impressed in working with him, his knowledge. He's glib. He's quick thinking on his feet. But I had a former play-by-play guy tell me this. The difference between being a play-by-play guy and a color analyst. He said, the difference is like you saying that there's winter in New Orleans and winter in Moscow. There's two winters, and they're both totally different.
Yes, they are.
It's a totally different world. And that just doesn't come naturally. And Pat Summerall did it, but he was a color guy before he became a play-by-play guy. I never forget Keith Jackson telling me this years ago. He was like, I was so depressed. Year one of Monday Night Football, I was on that squad. Me, Frank Gifford, and Howard Cosell. And Roone Arledge, after year one, says, I got to make a change. And he says, well, what do you make the change for? He said, no, we're going to move Frank. He's going to do play-by-play. And Frank had been in the business now for quite a few years. And he had a lot of media knowledge and because of what he was in New York. And so that certainly helped him in that spot. And he said, I was so upset because I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, well, Frank will do play-by-play. Howard will do what Howard does. And we're bringing in Don Meredith to do color. He was like, Don Meredith, he just retired from the NFL. And he says, you know, Roone said, well, listen, I got a plan for you. I got one more year with Chris Schenkel as the top guy, and then you're going to be our top guy for college football. And he said, you know, Mike, it changed my life because at that moment, I was thinking about quitting and going somewhere else. But, you know, my wife told me, stay. It's going to work out. He was our soundtrack for college football for over 30 years.
Absolutely.
And he said, I was so wrong about that, but I was even more wronger, if that's the right language, about Meredith. He flipped into that booth, and he said, the first time I heard him saying, turn out the lights, the party's over, I knew I was wrong about him too. So it'll be interesting with Zach and Deuce and how that works. Huge shoes to fill, and you're going to have to give him a little bit of time here. That's not going to come to him right away. It's going to take some time for him to develop his own style of broadcasting. Just like when you and I got in the business. It took some time for us to do it. And so I get it. And there were people certainly with more experience doing it. But, you know, the station decided that he would be the best choice.
And I'm not asking you to answer this question, but the real question is that a job that you should grow into? One of 32, NFL radio play-by-play. That's a job you earn, not a job that you grow into. And that would be the only criticism I have of the pick. Well, I think we love Zach Street. We want Zach to be successful. And I think overall he probably will be one day. But I don't think you can learn on I don't think the fans deserve someone to learn on the job. One
of the things I did tell him was, any bit of advice, and my deal is, I remember something Vince Lombardi said when he took over with the Packers. And the owner of the Packers said, listen, I'm worried about the morale of the players. And Vince said, I ain't worried about the morale of the players. I'm worried about my morale. And so, my only advice to Zach is, you got to worry about your own morale. You got to work at it, and I know he's a real hard worker at it, but it will take some time.
No doubt.
But you're going to be judged by Jim's standards. Like it or not, that's going to be the case. You're going to be judged by one of the best to ever do it, and that standard is really, really high. And so, he's going to have to fight that and work through it also, too, as a team, because that's the other part about it. One thing that but working as a tag team with, and I thought Deuce was coming into, he was really getting very, very good at it.
Yes.
And again, with Deuce, it took him a little while to find his voice, and he's become really good as a color analyst to take over for Hokie.
We're going to take an early break, and when we come back, we'll talk some Saints. Mike Detillier is our guest tonight. I'm your host, Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Stay tuned.
Air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhardt has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhardt's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhardt's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhardt's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Glad to have Mike Detillier with us tonight. Mike, let's start with Saints. I'm going to ask you about your overall thoughts on camp in a minute, but the big story right now is Marcus Davenport. What can we expect out of Marcus Davenport this season? Obviously, he's been going against Toronto Armstead in practice. It's very difficult to go against a healthy Toronto Armstead. But, in the NFL, you're going to go maybe not as good as Toronto Armstead, but you're going to go against really good, savvy tackles, tight ends, running backs, whoever it is that's going to be protecting the passer. As you've looked at him and evaluated him in camp now at the NFL level, what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses, what do you expect out of him this season?
Well, he ain't put up a lot of W's going up against Tehran and Ramchak, and listen, but that was expected. At UT San Antonio, you have never played anybody as good as Ryan Ramchak or Tehran Armstead. Never in your career. And he was moved around a lot at UT San Antonio. What you see with him athletically, he looks the part. I mean, he's a tall, cut guy, great speed, quick off the edge. I think the big part with him is learning how to use his arms and hands and not become a one-trick pony as a speed guy. Okay. You've got to use different moves. You got to put a few more tools in the toolbox. Well, how you do that? Go up every day against somebody better than you. And that's what's happening with him right now. I talked to Ryan Nielsen in doing the offensive defensive lineman camp, and I think he had the best line to it. He said, my biggest concern for Marcus is how he handles when he goes 0 for 20 up against a guy. Mm-hmm. Because in college, he was never 0 for 20.
Sure.
He was winning. And he said, he's so smart. He said, I think, and he understands this game at a high level, that he'll understand that he's not going to win those matches a lot. But when he does win, you make the impact. So I think you're going to see the gradual improvement with him. One of the things I see different from last week to this week of him using a little bit of leverage to try to get around the tackle. He knows he can't beat him all the time with a speed move because they're catching you almost like a pop fly. Come on, you use speed move, I'll catch you with it. You use a bull rush, man, I'm every bit as strong as you. And so he's tried in the offseason to physically get strong, especially in the lower body, because my thing with a big man athlete is you generate speed from power in the lower body. So it's a work in progress with him. It's tantalizing to watch him because you see that once he's going to get it, he's really going to get it. But I throw it back to two guys that have been impressive in training camp. Trey Hendrickson, David Onyemata.
Yes.
Trey Hendrickson today compared to a year ago, night and day of how much better he is as a technician.
Okay.
His ability to use his arms and hands, get off of a blocker, and get into the backfield. David Onyemata, 7 years ago, he didn't even know what a football looked like.
Right.
2 years in the NFL. I thought last year was the breakout year for him. I thought he played really well a year ago. I think he's up the ante. You can see the leverage skills, the technical skills with his arms and hands. That's all coming together with him. And you see the two young guys, and you understand that's going to happen to Marcus.
Right.
Now, will it happen the first quarter of the season? You're going to alternate him and Alex Okafor, who has come back from the injury, and that's a major one. When you got an Achilles injury, he has looked good. So you're going to alternate the two, and I think he's going to flash it. My thing is, what happens in week 10 and 11 and 12? That's where I want him to kick it up.
Sure.
Because in essence now, we are in December, and it's going to matter. And I think for this football team to make the next move, the biggest position that they have to improve is defensive line. Come on, take off your Saints hat and throw it away.
Sure.
The Vikings are better up front than the Saints are today. Well, when you look at what they have with Everson Griffin and Daniil Hunter and Sheldon Richardson and Linval Joseph, that's better than what the Saints have. Look at in Los Angeles. Ndamukong Suh, Michael Brockers, Aaron Donald when he finally gets there.
Yes.
And Bill Johnson, I can go coach them. I mean, Bill's got the best job in the world coaching that. Look at the Eagles. 7-man rotation last year. They bring in Michael Bennett to come in to help. Right now, those three teams are better up front than you are. So you have to have Davenport, Hendrickson, Onyemata, Okafor, in gear for that run in late December and into January. That's going to be the key to you getting to the Super Bowl and you not. What it is up front. Eric, I'm a big believer in this. Nothing wins more games in the fourth quarter than a pass rush.
Yes.
How many times we watching a game, a team's down by 10, 12 points? Those linemen are spent. They can't rush anymore, and you got a quarterback. Pick you apart. And all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, you're out. Punt, guess what? You're back on the field. That's the one thing in the NFL that I've found throughout my years covering it is really taking a decline. The depth on the defensive line. That it isn't there anymore.
Why is that, Mike?
I just think a lot of those defensive, it's not so much the interior players was more on the edge.
Yes.
I think 7-on-7 changed the world. So I got a 6'3", 6'4" guy who's a junior in high school. Man, I don't want to play no defensive end outside linebacker. Let me play receiver or tight end. I can go play 7-on-7. In Louisiana, you can play that 11 months out of the year.
Yes.
And, so look what Marcus Davenport was in high school. He was a receiver. He grew out of that position. So I think 7-on-7 and the emergence of what you see in the pitch and catch game in not only college, but high school and middle school now has turned those tall, lanky players that would have played defensive end or outside linebacker into wide receivers and tight ends.
That's interesting because when you look at the premium that's put on outside linebackers and pass rushers,
they don't want to play it.
That's where the money is in the NFL.
Okay, look at every year. Look all the cornerbacks that get picked. Why can't that cornerback play wide receiver?
Well, hands, catch.
And a lot of times, too, is, you know why? Because on 7-on-7, hey, I want to play receiver. I don't want to play cornerback. That's the kind of world we're looking at. You talk to young men, 15, 16, 17 years old, who are athletically gifted. Man, they don't talk about playing cornerback.
Right.
They talk about playing receiver. That's why I want to play. It's the new glamour position. You and I grew up, it was halfback.
Yes.
Now it's wide receiver. I don't want to play cornerback. Look how many get drafted. There's more misses at cornerback than any other position in the draft. Every year you see 8, 10 guys within the top 70. How many of those guys really are starters? You're lucky to get a couple out of that particular deal. And you look over the last few years. Name me a top corner. Lattimore last year. Okay. Who else? You start to think about, okay, Minnesota's got one. He's pretty good. Jacksonville's got Jalen Ramsey.
Yes.
He's pretty good. But they short. Name me a top pass rusher under 25 years old today. Joey Bosa is the only name.
There you go. That's it.
Anybody else?
Right.
You know, you got a lot of maybes. Maybe Jadeveon Clowney. Maybe Myles Garrett. But again, that's what you're looking at, Eric. You starting to see it. It has taken effect. And I told this to Ogeron when he took the job. You'll find you a top quarterback before you find you another top edge rusher. Because that's how limited they are. You just don't find them. On Alabama's team, where's the strength? Inside.
Right.
It's not the edge guys.
Yes.
Inside. They have their pick of who they want. Take a guy from University of Texas or Oklahoma as top edge rusher. Or from USC.
Right.
Where are they? You know, they're recruiting the best of the best. Now, Ohio State, man, listen, I give whatever Urban was doing there, he knew how to attract them.
Right.
Because he's got one, or whoever's going to be the coach, I'm sure it's going to be Day.
Yes.
He's got Joey Bosa's brother, Nick,
Right.
that'll come in there. But Eric, is just a situation where the numbers are not there. And I think a lot of it has to do with 7-on-7.
Speaking of defensive line, talk about the depth in the Saints defensive line from what you saw thus far.
It's pretty good. You know, you look at it, you know, that threesome in the middle. Now Rankins, instead of playing him out on the edge, which he had to do
Right.
a year ago because of the injuries, he's kicked inside. You got him and Onyemata.
It's a battle with those two, right?
Yeah, and you know what Tyler Davison can give to
Yes.
you as a player. And I'm a belief in this. I think eventually Muhammad kicks inside.
Okay.
Just a hunch, but I think that may be his best spot to be kicked inside. I'm interested in Mitchell Lowen and how that goes. He got beat pretty good the other day, but you know he's a guy can play special teams, can play both end and tackle,
Right.
that sort of thing. You got to get Cam Jordan some rest.
No doubt.
You know, listen, he's the most complete defensive end in the NFL. When you look at pass rush and playing against the run, he's the guy. You can't play him 90-something% of the snaps. You got to give him some rest somewhere along the line, and they've been jackpot lucky. And listen, Cam keeps himself in great shape.
Yes.
But eventually that wear down is there. That's why it's so important to have the Hendrickson, Davenport, Okafor, that threesome there that you can get extra pressure off the edge. And now with the different schemes, a lot of it's coming from inside. You running a safety up the middle or a linebacker up the middle because no quarterback wants to see any pressure in his face.
Right. The rookie class, how many do you think will contribute this year? A lot of people, again, were going to be spoiled by the last two drafts. I don't think you can look at this rookie class and really compare over the last 2 years. You obviously researched these guys very, very thoroughly. Well, who do you think makes the team? Who do you think is going to be a guy that's going to make an impact on Sunday? Outside of, again, we know Courtney Smith looks like he's one.
Well, I'll give credit where credit's due here. I have a friend of mine who was coaching on the UCF staff, and he told me this a week before the draft. He said, Mike, I recruited Keenan Allen when he came out of high school. Well, we thought he was going to Alabama because he had verbally committed he was going there. In the last minute, he changes over because Nick wanted him to play safety. He wanted to play receiver. Again, goes back to that point. Goes to Cal, and he says, I looked at Traquan, and their athletic backgrounds are similar. They built sort of the same. He says, you know, they were both excellent basketball players. They both were track guys, 400-meter dash. They both played in different systems. He said, you know, Cal's quarterbacking wasn't good, so everything was real short. He said in UCF, they struggled at times too at the quarterback position. But he says it's the way they can run a route, the way they set up a defender to get separation, and both are real explosive after the catch. He said, now here's the thing with Keenan, a lot of people sort of forget, you know, he hurt his knee and he dropped from a first-round pick to a third-round pick because he didn't run well. But he said in the spring he ran a 4.48 40-yard dash. Traquan ran a 4.49. So he said, look at the similarities athletically and what they can do well. And you can see with Traquan, he's worked with Drew Brees. Because we saw one practice, they probably had 11 plays, and Drew targeted him 7. I mean, you could see the connection of him going to San Diego and working with Drew. I think he's going to have a nice rookie season on this football team. The linemen, I think, are going to have a hard time making the 53-man squad. Yeah. I think both of them look to me like they'll probably be practice squad players. Boston Scott, you know, he is what I saw him when he was in high school and at Tech. Quick player. He's elusive in space, catches the ball well. What I want to see from Boston, he ain't never been hit like he's going to get hit. You know, Louisiana Tech, who they played in that Conference USA, you know, their opponents, he ain't got hit hard. Wait till you hit in the NFL. How he is, you know, with ball security. Because you know what? We saw guys similar to him in Marcus Murphy, SEC. Right. He was the SEC All-Purpose Guy of the Year, SEC Special Teams Player of the Year. Oh, yeah, he flashed it until he got hit. Right. And then he got in the doghouse real quick with Sean Payton with it. I like the two defensive backs. I know Moore's hurt right now, but I think he's smart. He can play in the nickel. He's battling for a spot. Natal Jamison, I've always felt, is a free safety. They've used him a lot at corner. He's gotten picked on. But you understand that's just the way it's going to be in this world with that. So I think one of the two defensive backs make the 53-man squad. But every year, you know, we say this about, it's hard to make that squad. Until it comes down for the cut down. And then you see 8, 9 guys that are either rookies or free agents or first-year guys that make the team for one reason, special teams. Yes.
And that'll be changing now with the new rules.
New rules on how you keep a certain amount of guys on special teams and how you use them. And the punt return situation on this team is a major cluster across the board. That's why you brought in Brandon Tate. There was no doubt about it.
And that's his forte.
That's his forte. He made a couple of nice catches in practice. And so, you know, he's an experienced receiver, but he's an experienced return man. But again, if you can't do it in practice, you can't do it in a game. True. Because everybody tells me that about Boston. Oh, he's going to be a great punt return guy. My thing is, you think Skip Holtz is a dumb guy? Why wasn't he returning punts at Tech? Right. Because he wasn't catching it well. Sure. He wasn't secure with it. Last year at this time, and talking to Coach O, he wanted Dante to be the guy. He wanted Dante Jackson to be his punt return guy because of the speed element. It didn't work out because he couldn't secure the punt well. So he got DJ. And DJ was Dave Kingman. Either it was a home run or was a strikeout. Right. He was feeling balls at the 3 He had never done it before, catching a ball at the 3-yard line. But when he made a play, and you saw what happened in that Auburn game, he turned that game completely around because of his speed and his ability to make people miss in space. So that's still way up in the air about the punt return situation with the Saints.
Mike, you mentioned Cam Jordan and his ability to stay healthy. Breeze has been able to stay healthy. What are your thoughts about what's going on with the backup quarterback position?
Day to day, you watch it, and one of them looks decent one day and they're not real good the next. Only thing I can tell you is just hope that you don't have to go to that element. Now, I think where Taysom Hill excels in preseason will be if his primary guy is not open, he's going to take off and run with it. Right. And he is quite an athlete. What I want to see from him really is his patience in the pocket to find the second and the third read downfield. Now, you say, look at what he did at Brigham Young, okay? He was right around a 60% passer in a short-range passing team built on the short pass. He should have been much higher than that. But he was also a bolter. Pressure gets to you, open man's not there, I take off running. Was hurt every year. So he's a great special teams guy, and I think he'll do real well in preseason. I don't know about the regular season. This team is still looking really for that guy to be the number 2 guy. And Tom Savage, we know about. Again, he's an erratic passer, and in game situations, we've all seen it. Doesn't feel pressure. The pressure's right on top of him. He's still holding on to the football. That's not a good trait for a quarterback. So that to me is still questionable Man, if I'm Sean, that would maybe keep me up at night.
Yeah.
Having a 39-year-old quarterback, and boy, knock on wood, Drew has been healthy, and he trains like an Olympic athlete, but good gracious, it is a Mount Everest drop-off when you're talking about Drew Brees to Taysom Hill, Tom Savage. Mount Everest.
When you look at the depth across the board on this team, talk about some positions where you'll think there'll be really some tough cuts.
Running back position is going to be interesting because Jonathan Williams has had a pretty strong camp so far. But I think Terrence West would be the guy that if I had to play the game tomorrow without Ingram, he would be my number 2 guy behind Alvin Kamara. As an inside runner, as a receiver, also experienced as a pass protector. People don't realize that at running back, you also occasionally got to protect that quarterback.
Yes.
Boston Scott has little experience doing that. 5'6". Jonathan Williams, he was a star runner at Arkansas. Doesn't have a lot of experience as a pass protector. Shane Vereen has, and he's a really good receiver coming out of the backfield.
Yes.
He knows what he's doing coming out of the backfield. So that's going to be, and Trey Edmonds, who we've seen them use some fullback, and also he's a really good special teams guy.
Right.
That's going to be a tough cut at that particular position. And what happens at the safety spot? Because the 3. It's going to be Von Bell. It's going to be Marcus Williams, who's had a tremendous camp. And I think Kurt Coleman has had a major impact on this football team. He becomes the communicator for a young secondary to make sure everybody knows what they're doing. What's behind them? Is it going to be Justin Hardy, who's a converted receiver now, playing safety? Chris Banjo has mostly been a special teams guy. I think they've made a concerted effort to keep players on this team to upgrade their special teams.
Yes.
And so that part at safety is going to be interesting to watch on how they keep those positions, and also certainly at the cornerback position. I think Arthur Millette's had a really good camp also. There, and Arthur's a guy that when you hear Sean Payton talk about a guy and he talks about him positively, that means he likes him.
Yes.
I mean, just read between the lines there.
Linebacker as well, right?
Linebacker's got a lot of depth and a lot of experience. Other than Anzalone, all of them.
Right.
You see DeMario Davis. He's got some sand in the pants, so to speak. He's a big guy in the middle. But he can also play in reverse well. And I think that's such a big part of the NFL today. You got to be able to cover. You got to be able to cover. I think if you go with the 3 linebackers today, Davis is in the middle, Anzalone's on the weak side, AJ's at the strong side, and you have Manti Te'o and Craig Robertson, 2 experienced guys. Craig could play all 3. I think Manti, I know, has played strong and on the inside. And then Nate Stupar, if he can stay healthy, has been a really big contributor on special teams.
Yes. And I think he'll stick because of special teams.
I think that's a strong possibility.
Switch to LSU. Everybody can't wait to see Joe Burrow. Everybody can't wait to be able to see what's going to happen with this quarterback competition. What do you think happens there?
Oh, it'd be a shock if Joe Burrow didn't win it. And talking to different people, Joe Burrow goes in the morning, and he's supposed to watch film for an hour. He stays there 3.
Wow.
He's gathered the receivers on his own to go work out. Have you heard another LSU quarterback do that in recent years?
Not in recent years.
None. So he's taken charge leadership-wise. How quickly this all will come together, the rapport, because he hasn't really been in a game-type situation with these receivers, will be interesting. And LSU doesn't have a lot of experience at receiver.
Right.
That's the other part.
But they're talented.
Talented. Now, Giles has played a lot of football, but in Texas Tech's attack.
Yes.
I think Sullivan, because of his size, and he gives you a huge matchup situation. I think Justin Jefferson, watch him. In the spring, every quarterback knew where he was.
Okay.
Now, he's not the fastest guy. He's not running anchor football 400-meter relay team, but he gets open, he catches the football, and he's a tough dude to bring down one-on-one. To me, that would be your 3 starters. Where does Derek Dillon fit in here? And where does the 2 freshmen in Terrence Marshall and Jamar Chase fit into this? So I think it's going to be the rapport with Joe and his receiving core. But it would be a shock to me that when they started against Miami, Joe Burrow's not under center.
Right.
Unless an injury would happen to Joe. I think Joe's got the job. No matter what O is saying,
right.
I think he knows it himself.
Yes. The offense, we heard it was kind of an offense by committee. Everybody kind of had a chance to be able to give their input in terms of the offense. What do you expect to see from this offense this year?
This is Steve's offense. I don't know him and Jerry have worked together, but it's Steve's offense.
So all this about Robinson and Sullivan and everybody involved, everybody kind of putting their thoughts in this gumbo offense, it's really Steve's offense. It's
really Steve's offense. I think everybody's got some input into it. And listen, I think Coach O has got some input into it. And here's my thing. I don't have an issue with that, but on game day, you let Steve make the calls.
Yes, agreed.
Do not get involved in game day calls. Let Steve make those calls on game day. You know, during the week, every head coach, he wants input, you know. And listen, he's a guy from on the bayou, like me. He thinks he can micromanage everything in life. You've got to learn that you got to trust others. He trusts Steve. And you remember when he became the interim coach, he handed that offense over to Steve, and what they set, 8 or 9 new LSU records in that spot. Now, they didn't play well against Alabama, but that year not a lot of teams did other than Clemson. So I think this is really Steve's offense. No matter what, and it's easy to say, well, somebody has this input, somebody's got that input. Yeah. In the end, it's Steve's offense.
Well, and look, I talked about this on the radio show. There was some criticism about the Matt Canada situation, and rightly so, because you promised the best coordinators in college football. But something can be said about surrounding yourself with people that you trust. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned on the radio show, if O's going to go down with the guys that you trust. You're going to go down instead of guys that maybe you're not getting along with or you don't trust that have your back.
Yeah, I believe that, and there is, the track record of Matt. He's bounced around.
Absolutely, and there's a reason why.
And there's a reason why. That personality bristled people at North Carolina State, and he was fired. He bristled some people at Pitt, and he left to come to LSU. My thing with Steve is Steve's a talented coach. Steve's taken a lot of criticism, I think unjustly, as a coach.
But I think it was a byproduct of, again, the expectations of who the offensive coordinator would be.
Here's my deal. The head coach, he kind of opened up this vein, okay? He opened it up.
Absolutely.
Because of what happened with him and Matt. And so I think people's irate because of Steve. Oh, Steve got the job. He should have went out and get somebody else. Well, if he's not bringing in somebody, they want to bring in a guy that's run a certain type of offense. That's not what Ed wants to do. And for all they want to talk about, and you're going to see a different offense from LSU. 3 wide outs, 2 tight ends kind of flanked out. I'll guarantee you, early on, the running game is huge. You know why? You can't trust that these receivers and quarterback knows one another. So you're going to go back to running the ball. And that's where Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think Chris Curry is going to be the number 2
I was going to ask you, who do you think will tote the rock? And I think it will be 2 backs. I
think it'll be a 2-back offense or maybe even a 3-back offense. But I do think that from everything I've heard about Curry, he's made quite an impact since he's been here. And Clyde, he isn't the biggest guy in the world. But, man, he's a tough little dude running the football, and he can catch the football real well coming out the backfield. But it's the first time in our lifetime that we can say there is no bell cow runner on this football team. And so it is a question mark on that. And so it'll be interesting now on how that all works out. But you can bet. Listen, I know Orgeron. I know where he went to school. I know where he coached. He can talk about throwing the football 60-40. Well, I guarantee you that's going to be a lot closer to 50-50 than throwing it 60% of the time and running it 40.
Let's go to the phone lines and take a call, and then I want to get back to LSU if we could. Greg is in Houma. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guy. My question is this. I need your opinion on the Mark Ingram suspension. My thought is that Mark Ingram was a good runner, but he wasn't a great runner until Alvin Kamara came on. So I'm thinking that Sean Payton doesn't change any game plan and just plugs in whoever's there. And Or maybe does he distribute the carries to someone else, maybe through Drew Brees' passes or, something else? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, Greg. I disagree with you that he's not a good back.
too.
I mean, I think he's a really good back.
I think he's made himself into a really good back.
Here's the thing. I think the expectations early on was that he was going to be a star back.
Mm-hmm.
What he didn't do well was take it inside and get that extra yardage after contact. He was a little bit like Reggie when Reggie was first here.
Yes.
Man, I'm going to outrun everybody to the edge.
Well, he never got hit at Alabama.
Yeah, and my thing is, you can't outrun everybody to the edge. And when he learned his strength as a runner between the tackles, use his vision and his ability to get yardage after the first contact, and he stayed healthy the last 2 years. Yes. I think that's been a big key. He's always had some injuries early on, but now he's stayed healthy. That combination is as good as anybody. They're not going to up the ticker on Kamari because, you got sort of a pitch count with him as a runner receiver. And so I think, however it's distributed, and I do think West would be the guy because he is more, I say, closer skill-wise to Ingram in his ability to run between the tackles, good receiver, pretty good pass protector, and he's experienced in that manner, that he'll get those touches, but I do think they'll distribute it out, those touches that Ingram would have got. And they use the short pass almost like an extended handoff. So I think what you're not going to see is, instead of Kamari touching the football 17 times as a runner and maybe 5 or 6 times as a receiver, that's going to stay pretty much the same. What I see this year is, when you watch the film of a year ago, is most people disagree with you. Man, they say, Kamara caught 81 passes last year? I said, yeah. I wouldn't be shocked, Eric, that he pushes the 100 mark. It was the one guy that would keep me up at night. I know my best corner is going to go one-on-one against Michael Thomas. Yes. Tell me who's going to cover Kamara when I put him out wide.
Right. You're going to put a corner on him, you're going to put a safety on him, you're going to put a linebacker on him, what are you going to do?
So, it keeps you up late at night figuring it out on how you're going to do it. I think they're going to use him. Knowing Sean, I think he's got something in the game plan to use him more as a receiver than, say, as a runner, because he knows that, after a period of time, you just can't pound the rock with him. But if I flank him out wide, one-on-one, got to beat one guy, and then he's out in the open field. And I think they'll be selective with him on kickoffs. Almost like, you remember when Anthony Carter was playing and they needed a big play?
Yes.
AC would return a punt, return a kick, but he wasn't doing it all the time.
Right.
He wasn't doing it all the time.
Like they did with Bush.
Exactly.
When they needed a big play, they'd put Bush out there, and hopefully he would return a punt.
But I do agree with Greg that I think you're going to see the distribution. It's not going to be just all Alvin taking those carries that Mark had.
Renee is in Lacombe. Renee, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Renee.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask you, do you think Christian Fulton going to play for LSU this year? And do you think Arthur Millette going to make the team?
Okay, I'll answer on Arthur Millette first. I think Arthur Millette makes the 53-man squad. Christian Fulton, man, you're going up against the NCAA.
Yeah.
And rarely have they changed an opinion on a ruling. But listen, I don't know how in the world he could have got a 2-year suspension for that.
Right.
When they turn a blind eye and you see some of the things that have happened in college sports, and he's going to get a 2-year suspension, he served his 1 year. And I think they've got a pretty good case here. But so I think before I would have sided saying, no, the NCAA is going to keep their ruling. Today, I feel Christian's got a pretty good chance to be on the LSU team. And that certainly would help an area that they don't have a lot of depth. Now, Christian hasn't played much,
right?
So it'll be interesting to see how that juggles out. And, man, all I can tell you is with Greedy Williams on one side, Kerry Vinson better have some titanium in the backbone because he's going to have passes thrown his way every game. They're going to overload until he can prove he's the guy. Right. And I talked to Dave Aranda. He said, Mike, he made great improvement in the spring. And so that's the good news. And it's the best front seven I've seen at LSU in the last 7 or 8 years. Talent and depth. Yes. When you look at what they have up front, and, Dave told me the story that, 2 years ago, they had more scholarship kickers and punters than they did linebackers.
Wow.
Now look at it today. Yes. They've got talent and depth, and along the defensive line also. And Eric Alexander is going to miss some time early on, so Fokies get kicked inside. But Glenn Logan, young man from Destrehan, who both him and Coach Hill both told me probably had one of the 2 top springs would take that place out on the edge, and Glenn can play across the board.
Got about 2 minutes left. Your thoughts about Tulane? Can they take the next step?
Yeah, I think they will. And listen, you got Jonathan Banks at quarterback, and I don't know, because in this league you need to get pressure on the quarterback. Where is that going to come from at Tulane this year? But Banks is going to keep you in every game. He's a tremendous athlete. He is a guy that can play at the NFL level. Hopefully he can stay healthy.
Yes.
That's been the big key.
No one really behind him of any significance.
Boy, you look behind him and you say, my goodness, we need to keep him healthy. But I'm telling you, Eric, he gives you the hope that he can take this team into a bowl game. And what's going to be interesting is Nicholls State playing game 1 in Kansas, where I think they go to Kansas and win.
Wow.
I think the toughest game for them is to play Tulane, because it's almost sort of a mirror image. Tim's got a really good defensive team, and just remember, that team played Georgia and had a lead in the 4th quarter. A year and a half later, they played for the national championship, and they had a lead late in the 3rd quarter against Texas A&M. I would not be surprised if they pull the win in Kansas. Jeff Long's looking for a new coach the following week, because he got no ties to that head coach. None. And Tim is going to have his team ready. But, boy, if you get a chance to watch Tulane Nicholls, that's going to be something to watch. Chase Fourcade and Jonathan Banks.
And really, both schools have to keep their quarterbacks healthy. And both guys, they have the ability to run. They're dual threats. Both guys have got to stay healthy for those programs to advance.
But, man, listen, I give Willie tremendous credit. I don't think anybody squeezes as much vitamin C out of the orange as Willie Fritz. But he's got to find people that can put pressure on the quarterback. You can't hang your defensive backs out forever one-on-one. You got to put pressure. And with their top guy now in the NFL, where's that going to come from?
Yeah, no doubt. And, of course, look, he's year 3 of this program now. In the past, by year 2, he's had a winning record. They got robbed last year at SMU.
They got robbed. That to me, I still don't get it.
I don't get it either.
But whatever. But he's given his team confidence in themselves, and I think that run late last year gave them that. And you know what? When you got a guy like Banks, you know that team has full confidence that if we get close, Jonathan's going to pull it out for us.
Well, Mike, tonight, the Hall of Fame game for you, no vacation till after February, and then it's a little short one, and then you jump right back.
I don't get no vacation until May, so it's all over for me.
Right. No doubt about it. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Mike Detillier, one of the best out there, no doubt about it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. We're also on Pelican Sports Television every Friday, 9 p.m. You can catch all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports at ericasher.com. You can also listen live to the radio show, which is on Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeartRadio app. That's weekdays noon to 2. And as always, again, you could follow me on Twitter at Eric_Asher, and of course the Facebook page as well. Special thanks to Mike Detillier, also to the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Naila Jones and Alistair Cohn, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. We take you right up to the Saints preseason opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm Eric Asher for Mike Detillier. Thanks for watching.